Really?
What's your name? Where are you from? And what was your profession within Scientology?
My name's Frank Oliver. I'm from Miami, and I used to be the investigations officer for the Church of Scientology out of their Miami office. I was involved in Scientology from 1986 until 1992.
6 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember since 1 million BC?
No, 95 million BC.
So
We'll do the intro again.
okay.
It was fine.
It was fine, the intro, yeah?
Okay.
Oh, the intro was fine. That means you worked for OSA, for the Office of Special Affairs. What is the Office of Special Affairs?
Originally, when I started in Scientology, I worked in another area of Scientology. I was recruited for the Office of Special Affairs in 1989 after having assisted the Office of Special Affairs on certain projects. The Office of Special Affairs is set up in Scientology with two purposes in mind. One is the Office of Special Affairs to handle PR, and the other is investigation. One works hand in hand with the other. Where there are areas that the church believes are detrimental to society, for example, in the areas of psychiatry, in the areas of the IRS, abuse maybe, Scientology sets up their investigative machine to work and then uses the information that they garner from that with their PR machine that they have, which is what they go out and they try and publicize this information. Now, it's not for the purpose of the general good of the populace. It's very self-serving. They go after the IRS and its IRS abuses because the IRS opposed Scientology. They go after psychiatry because Hubbard, in essence, wanted to take over the mental health business when he started and founded Scientology way back when it was Dianetics. My goal as an investigations officer was to do the work asked of me in investigating people that were perceived enemies of the church.
For example?
An example would be the Cult Awareness Network.
What is the cult of?
The Cult Awareness Network was an organization that was set up by the daughter of Leo Ryan, who was a congressman who went to Africa where Jim Jones had his people's temple, and he was killed in the massacre and in the mass suicide. His daughter set up this organization to be a clearinghouse of information and to help family members of individuals who were involved in dangerous cults. They were big in getting this information out to people. Scientology perceived the Cult Awareness Network as an enemy. So their goal was to destroy the Cult Awareness Network. The methods that they used to do that was they would have individuals like myself and other individuals in Scientology join the Cult Awareness Network, which I was a member of the Cult Awareness Network, to gather information about what they had on Scientology. They would attend the national functions. They would try and infiltrate the organization. They were involved in a massive campaign of lawsuits against the Cult Awareness Network because they actively wanted to join the Cult Awareness Network, and the Cult Awareness Network denied membership to members of Scientology. In 1991, I was sent to Los Angeles to assist in investigating the Cult Awareness Network to destroy it. I was flown to Los Angeles, where I stayed there for approximately 2.5 months, where as soon as I got there, we established a room at the base in Los Angeles, where the Office of Special Affairs domestic operation was.
Where is it?
It's on the second floor or the third floor, I don't recall right now, of the building on L. Ron Hubbard Way, and across the street from Masho. And there, basically, there was an entire unit set up. It had people handling PR. It had people handling investigation. We had the attorneys right down the hall. Kendrick Moxon was the attorney that was involved in this. And we had the high-level people from OSA Int directly involved in this. At the same time, there were other projects that were related to the CAN unit. For example, the surveillance of Hannah and Jerry Whitfield, which I was involved in.
Who's that?
Hannah and Jerry Whitfield are former members of Scientology. Hannah Whitfield at one time was the second person in charge of Scientology when Hubbard was still alive. She was on the original ship with Hubbard. She left the organization and has been speaking out against Scientology for many years. Her and Jerry have become exit counselors to help people recover from the experience of having been in cults and to help people leave cults once they're involved in them. Well, Scientology perceived them as enemies. Since they were enemies and they were involved in helping people leave Scientology, surveillance was set up to watch them because Scientology had gotten intelligence information that they were about to do a deprogramming of someone in England. Now, Scientology uses the term deprogramming, and it's a misnomer because if someone is being deprogrammed, obviously someone has programmed them. The surveillance was set up over a period of 3 to 4 days where we watched them 24 hours a day with 3 teams of private investigators as well as people like myself, just watching their house, following them in the car. We had copies of their phone records. We had copies of their credit report. We had information as to what their airline reservations were and where they were going. There was a full intelligence mission going on to find out who they were going to England to see. One of the people they were suspected of going to see was John Atack, who was a former member of Scientology and wrote a book critical of Scientology.
When you start to be a secret agent for Scientology, how does it work? They give you a book to read. Oh, we have to do it again. I think it's for you.
Okay, you were asking me about how they set it up.
How did they choose you? How did it start? You worked in Miami in a Scientology org, and how went it on?
I had been a staff member. I got on staff in '86 and left in probably early to mid '88 for personal reasons, financial reasons. I wanted to spend more time working to cover my own expenses, but I stayed a member of Scientology even after paying my freeloader debt off. I would still come in and do some services and pay off my freeloader debt. I was involved initially with the Office of Special Affairs doing some special projects. I designed some letterhead, for example, for the NCLE. I did different small things that they needed done. One day I was in the library and I was curious about, many things. And I went over to one of the computers. This is all before the internet. And I typed in the word Scientology in one of the periodical databases that they have that has all the articles from newspapers and magazines. And I started seeing articles about Scientology that were critical of Scientology. And I read every single one of them. And I made copies of every single one of them. And I put together a pack of information of all the critical information that was available. I put it together, bound everything. And I went into the Office of Special Affairs and I handed it to them. And they looked at it and went, my, you've been busy. I said, I was in the library and I got curious about something and, I put this thing together. I want to know what this is about. So they started pulling out DA packs, which are dead agent packs, which is basically information to counter all the information I had read. Affidavits and stories and reports and things that were supposed to dissolve all the things that I had read, at least in my mind. And so they spent several days, giving me this information and me reading about, the things that they were claiming that were true and the things that I had read were not true and how the society and the suppressives were trying to keep Scientology from being, well thought of and well liked and widely known. And I realized at that point I had a lot invested in Scientology regarding my time, the people that knew I was a Scientologist, and I had talked highly of Scientology. And here I was getting a glimpse of something that I knew wasn't right. And then there I decided that the only way I was ever going to know the truth was to know the truth. So because I had put together such a well-made pack of information without even being asked for it, I said, I could gather up all the rest of the information that I find that's, en theta, which is against the, en theta would be something derogatory about Scientology. I could gather up this information and report back to you what I find. And they liked that. They liked the fact that I could research and I could get things done and find out things, even though it was things that were critical about Scientology. And I told them, I said, isn't it strange that if someone just like me were to go into a library and do the same thing I did, that's all they would find? And they told me, well, we have a project that exists where we are trying to put all of L. Ron Hubbard's books in all the public libraries. And I said, oh, that's great. And they said at the same time, there are some books in the libraries that are critical of Scientology, and we need to get those books out of the library. And that was basically telling me to go in and steal the books that were critical of Scientology. And there was 2 books in the public library in Miami that were critical of Scientology. And they had me go in and steal those books. And it wasn't just done in Miami. It was done all over the country. Books critical of Scientology were stolen from libraries. I was asked to join OSA. And like I said, the only way I was going to find out if what I was being told was the truth is to get a little deeper in the organization. So I joined the Office of Special Affairs.
And they give you, how did it work? They give you...
Well, they're not real organized when it comes to investigations officers. At least they weren't at the time because there's so few of us in the country at the time. There was maybe, I don't know, a dozen of us.
Investigation officers.
Yes, there wasn't a lot of investigations officer posted because in every organization, they have an organizational chart.
In every city.
In every city, they have an organization, right. And in that particular department, there's a person at the top, which is the DSA.
That means the chief of the Secret Service.
Right, the Director of Special Affairs that handles Invest, and then there's Director of Special Affairs PR.
What's the difference between Invest and PR?
Well, PR is the people that you see. All the good things of the church, that's what the PR person goes out and talks to the media and to the public and everything. The investigations person, you hardly ever see them. They're the ones in the shadows finding out the dirt on everyone and everything. Critics, and bringing that to the PR so the PR can use it to make Scientology look good and to make them look, the other person look bad.
DA pass, huh?
Right. So that's how it works. They work with each other. In some cities, the DSA works by themselves because they may not have staff members underneath them. So they actually have to do the job of the invest officer. In my organization, they had an invest officer. So they had someone posted. But it was very few of us throughout the country that existed. And there wasn't really a hat pack put together for us until I got to Los Angeles.
What's a hat pack?
A hat pack is it's basically your instruction manual to become an investigations officer that has all the issues that you're supposed to read, all the policy letters.
It's like a study book.
It's a study book, right. How to be a... Exactly. And then you sign off when you complete a certain part. They have a smaller course like that that's in the Volunteer Minister's Handbook of Scientology. They have a mini course called the Investigations Pack. And that's a little course that you do, a little check sheet you do, which teaches you different techniques for investigation.
Who wrote that book?
L. Ron Hubbard.
Personally?
Yes. All the policy letters used by people in the Office of Special Affairs, everything was written by L. Ron Hubbard. All the OSA network orders, OSA being the Office of Special Affairs, which oversees that division in the small organization.
The headquarters for the Secret Service.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
OSA.
Yeah, so when I got to Los Angeles, they at that time had just finished putting together the brand new revised Investigations Officer Pack. And I received the first one they made.
Study pack.
Oh, yeah.
How to be an invest officer.
Correct.
And so you got the book?
I was given that pack as well as a bunch of things that you're supposed to read with it. And I was supposed to work on this study course at the same time I was working 12 hours a day for Scientology when I was in Los Angeles. And I was supposed to study at the same time. But when you're working in OSA, you're doing what you're doing. You're not studying. You're not doing your course. You're investigating. You're doing whatever needs to get done. If you have to be on a surveillance, you're on a surveillance. I mean, I lost 4 days of my life sitting in a car watching somebody's front door.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't sat through an earthquake.
That means every job you got, you have to do.
Oh, yeah.
It was an order and you have to do it.
Yes.
And when you got an order, are there other Secret Service people from Scientology also do it the same?
No. Everybody's, unless you're working in conjunction with another investigation officer on something, they give you individual projects to do. One of the things that the investigations officer did was, for example, when they needed something done that they wanted one of their private investigators to do, they would give it to the investigations officer to run the PI. Well, basically what that is they give you a list of things that they want the private investigator to do. They give you also in that same program the things that you're supposed to do and the things that you're supposed to get someone else to do. And on that is their entire program written out, and you have to do those steps and sign when you've completed them. One of them is put together the information that, for example, when we're briefing a PI to do a thing on someone, we bring the PI in. Well, before that, you have to...
the PI is the
private investigator, right. Before that, they have to write the program, and then they obtain the funding for the program. and then they bring in the PI, and in the meanwhile, I'm supposed to be getting all the background information to brief the private investigator to say, okay, here's the information that we're providing you. This is what we want you to get done. You tell him all the pertinent information that he needs in order to accomplish the task at hand. For example, they would say, okay, I didn't want to get all this information on, let's say, Jerry Whitfield. Okay, and they'd brief the private investigator and say, okay, this guy Jerry Whitfield used to be a Scientologist, and he's involved in deprogrammings, and he's holding people against their will, and he's taking money for it from their parents. You know, they would just make it this, they would make this big thing, and a lot of times the information they're giving the PI isn't necessarily true. But the PI is going to do his job based on what they tell him, because that's all he has to base his job on. And remember, he's a private investigator. He doesn't answer to, he has to answer to law enforcement if he violates a law, but his job is to do what the church wants him to do, because they're the ones that are basically paying him. Now, in Scientology, and in this country, a private investigator would work for, let's say, the church attorneys. And they would naturally supposed to report to the church attorneys. However, in the Office of Special Affairs, the people that tell the private investigator what to do is the Office of Special Affairs, OSA. The attorneys know what's going on, but they're not the ones issuing the orders. OSA is issuing the orders.
And why are they doing in such a complicated way? Why is not OSA giving the orders directly to PIs?
OSA is giving the orders directly to PIs, but they're not supposed to. Oh yeah, they're paying them directly as well. But it goes through the attorney's accounts.
Well, why that? For what reason?
Because that's the law.
In the United States?
Yeah, the PIs are supposed to take their orders from the attorneys. They're supposed to get paid by the attorneys.
And what would happen if this would go direct? It would be against the law?
Well, they're not. Well, you know, you can hire a private investigator, but for the church to hire a private investigator on their own without going through their attorneys would be a violation of their 501 act to get tax-exempt status. Because what are they using their tax-deductible contributions for?
For private investigators. A church is using money for private investigators.
Exactly. So how they make
the
it...
rest are critics.
Exactly. So the only way they can make it work is they would use their attorneys, because the attorneys could say, oh, this person is a threat to the church. So in defense of the church, they hire a private investigator, and it's being handled by the attorneys. You see, that's an area where if, for example, someone were in a Catholic church and they slipped and fell down and, there's going to be a lawsuit, well, the church's attorneys would, investigate maybe if that person falls down in front of a McDonald's last week and a Wendy's the week before. But that would be an expense of the church to investigate a claim against them. Okay, that person may be committing fraud on that church. Fine. Scientology spends $30 million. $30 million on attorneys.
In what time range?
A year.
For a year?
Yeah. Well, that's what they spent last year, I'm told.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, yeah.
That's a lot of contributions by people that make donations to the church. That's what that is. Because that's where the money comes from.
That means so-called church donations.
Go to PIs. Go to private
investigators.
Go to attorneys.
And to look for critics. And
oh, yes.
to keep them or make them quiet.
Right. Now, when we followed the Whitfields, this is back in 91, we didn't harass them like I see them doing now. Now I see PIs harassing people. I mean, we were watching. I mean, we chased them around a little bit, but we weren't picketing their neighborhood or, giving out flyers. None of this stuff that, I hear goes on now. I wasn't involved in anything. I couldn't have been involved in anything like that. I would have left right then and there if they would have asked me, we want you to picket somebody. I'd be like, picket? I'm going to picket somebody. You told me these people were evil. You told me these people were hurting somebody. You told me these people were holding people against their will. You told me they're ex-members and they are speaking out critically of the church. That's what you told me. I'm basing my actions on what you've told me. You have lied to me. You have put me at risk. You have made me do things that I would normally have never done. So the church uses that.
How is the Office of Special Affairs, the Secret Service of Scientology, organized from the top up, going down? And who are the top officials of the Secret Service?
Your top guy is Mike Rinder. He's the executive director of the Office of Special Affairs.
He's in charge for all spy projects, for all...
He knows everything that's going on. And above him is David Miscavige.
The direct command.
Everything goes from him to him directly.
And under him, under Miscavige?
Under Miscavige, he has his own little army. He has
Kurt Weill?
he has Kurt Weill. He has the entire echelon of upper management of RTC. He has the Watchdog Committee. He has the int management. He has the flag command bureau. He has the individual orgs. He has Scientology Missions International. He has ABLE. He has WISE. He has, it's an entire pyramid that they have of different things that are supposed to be dissociated, but it's all under the same thing.
And how would be the way if, for example, we have critics in Germany and who are against Scientology and giving interviews to newspapers, to TV stations in Germany? How would be the way it works?
Well, what they would do is they would start investigating those people. They would find out all the information they could get on the person through legal means. They would find out, through the voting records, through their tax rolls that may become public information. I don't know what information is made public about private individuals in Germany. They would follow the person to their home. They would see where they frequent, where their children go to school, where the person works, where the person might have a hobby. Basically they want to find out everything they can about the person. They would investigate their credit if they could. They would talk to their neighbors about the person, but they start on a campaign, at least now, the things that they're doing, they would go and try and character assassinate someone. For example, they would go, let's say, to your neighbors, and they would say, what do you know about, we're here to talk about Peter Reichelt. We'd like to ask you some questions. We understand, that Mr. Reichelt's involved with child pornography. And your neighbors would be like, child pornography? Well, I don't know. I've known Peter for many years, and he walks his dog, and he has children, and I don't know anything. The only children I ever see there are his children, and I don't know what you're talking about, But that plants a seed of doubt in the minds of the neighbors. So now the next day you walk out the door, and your neighbor looks at you a little weird because somebody was there asking about child pornography, which has nothing to do with you, but it's something that they use. They will start fabricating what is or isn't. They haven't accused you of being a child pornographer. They're there investigating the possibility that you may be involved in, It's a little game they play.
They're going to your company, spreading rumors.
Oh, absolutely.
Letters, and saying blah, 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 all these criminal facts.
Absolutely.
Done.
Yeah, he may be involved in that. Well, he may be a space alien too. I don't know that for sure either. But the fact that they would do that to someone that speaks out critically of the church, that in itself, what other church has ever hired private investigators to go after people that have spoken critically of it?
I don't know.
There are people in this country that believe in abortion. There are people in this country that don't believe in abortion. And these are very strong factions that work against each other. Now, the Catholic Church does not believe in abortion, but it isn't hiring private investigators to investigate the people that do believe in abortion. And that makes sense to me.
Is OSA a criminal organization or criminal part of?
I think that criminal activity does happen within the Office of Special Affairs. Absolutely.
I think so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Like things, for example, death threats or even orders to kill critics?
I have heard that from people that were in the Office of Special Affairs.
That is happened.
I have heard from people that were in the Office of Special Affairs that have told me that they were ordered to cause permanent harm to another individual.
Yeah, you've heard that.
I've heard that, yes, from the person who was told to do it.
And who?
I didn't.
And who gave the orders for such a thing?
I believe it was given to them from the top OSA management.
And this is?
It would probably have to be Mike Rinder.
Mm-hmm.
I was never given such an order. I would have left long before that.
Before that. Mm-hmm. And when did you recognize the criminal force?
As soon as I got to Los Angeles and saw how OSA worked.
How it worked?
Well, when I was in a room and they were telling me to set up this, section of the organization to destroy CAN, and they brought in all these file cabinets with all this information about the directors of CAN and former members and lists that they got a hold of, and the addresses and phone number of everyone that had been contacted, that CAN had contacted, and people that had been wanting to leave the church and had gone to CAN. We had all that information. Anyone that CAN had referred to someone to help them get out of Scientology, we had all that information. and they had me investigating every single one of the board of directors of CAN, the people that had been board of directors of CAN, the people that were involved in the American Family Foundation. It was just this massive campaign of finding out everything you could about these people to try and discredit them.
And what happened after that? After you...
I mean, they took me in a room and they sat me down, and they had so many projects going on at the time that my main purpose for being there was to be in the CAN unit, but they would pull me out of that room and put me on other related projects to, move them along a little bit. I remember sitting in a room and having to go through a printout of someone's phone bill and find out who all the phone numbers belong to. I don't know how I got a copy of someone's private phone bill. It was put in front of me, and they said, find out who these numbers belong to. So I had to...
Who gave you these orders? Any names?
It was probably someone in at OSA East US, maybe Tony Sharon-Banis. That was a lady that was one of my seniors. David Butterworth. It could have been Roger. It could have been Joe Neal. It could have been Ben Shaw, who's now running security here at the Flag Land Base. At least they bring him in when things are hot.
Mm-hmm. And for example, there are only very few people who ever left OSA and spoke publicly about it.
Yeah.
About the work. I only know from you, and the other man is Gary Scarf.
Mm-hmm.
How reliable are the things what Gary Scarf is saying? Because they met so many the apex. Mm-hmm. Scientology is destroying his reputation. Yeah, they're trying everything to destroy his reputation worldwide. That even no journalists and OTV station is now likes to speak with him because they destroyed him nearly.
Well, I can't speak for Gary Scarf, and I can't tell you what of the things that he's told me are true or false. Because unless it was something that I was directly involved in, I would be out of place to say that. But it would not be out of place for me to say that I am not in any way shocked by anything he's told me that they've asked him to do. The criminal nature of Scientology and the things that they have said in the past and the things they've done in the past would indicate to me that the things that Gary has brought to my attention, the things that he's told me, are most likely true. I don't see of any reason why he would tell me differently. He gains nothing by telling me something that wouldn't be true, and I gain nothing by repeating something that wouldn't be true.
But from the whole history, from the whole story, you would say it is correct. This could have happened like that.
Yes, absolutely.
He worked for OSA. He like you.
He definitely knows Mike Rinder. Mm-hmm. From things that I've heard and things that I've seen. He definitely knows Mike Rinder, and I do have a vague recollection of having seen Gary at some time when I was in Los Angeles. Now, he has the same recollection of me. We did not work on the same project, but Scientology has a way of compartmentalizing different things so that people don't have the full picture. They want you to have a piece of the puzzle and have every single section of that little piece, but they're not going to let one person know everything that's going on. It goes higher up. They are the ones that know what's going on in all the different areas.
And how important is OSA for Scientology, for David Miscavige?
Oh, OSA is his, that's his number one thing right now. That's what he has to have in place. If not, Scientology would have been gone long ago.
So OSA keeps Scientology alive?
Absolutely. It was before the Guardian's office.
Mm-hmm.
But
and if OSA is finished in any way, Scientology will...
Absolutely, but it would happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that one could survive without the other.
And how many people are working for the Secret Service?
I would estimate,
worldwide?
just as from my own knowledge and from things that I've heard and read, there may be 1,000 individuals that work for OSA. Worldwide. Mm-hmm.
And how many people are within that organization, within Scientology, from your knowledge?
How many people are in OSA?
Yeah.
Or in Scientology worldwide? Worldwide, just from the things...
Zero.
Just things that I've read and things that I've seen, I don't see more than 100,000 people involved in this. It's not as big as they claim it is. They claim 8 million members. I don't believe that for a minute. If they had 8 million members, things wouldn't be the condition that they're in all over the country. The statistics wouldn't be down in all their organizations. They wouldn't have the big problems that they're having if they had 8 million members.
What does the oppressive person declare?
A suppressive person declare is an expulsion from the church.
And who's doing that? And for what reason?
They expel people from the church for committing acts against the church, what they deem are crimes against the church.
You've got one?
Oh, absolutely. I was expelled for secretly making plans to leave the church.
And what consequences has this for you?
None. I wanted to leave anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.